Village of Wheeling regular meeting is now called to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call for attendance. Trustee Agiris.
Here.
Trustee Brady.
Here.
Trustee Here. Trustee Hein.
Here.
Trustee Lang.
Here.
Trustee Vogel.
Here.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 19th. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Trustee Agiris, second by Trustee Hein. Roll call. Trustee Agiris.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Here.
Yes.
Trustee Hein.
Yes.
Trustee Lang.
Yes.
Trustee Vogel.
Yes.
And President Abascato, yes. I need a motion now to appoint Mr. Fondilis as our recording secretary this evening. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Trustee Lang, second by Trustee Here. Roll call. Trustee Agiris.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Here.
Yes.
Trustee Hein.
Yes.
Trustee Lang.
Yes.
Trustee Vogel.
Yes.
And President Abascato votes yes. Mr. Fondilis, is there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes, Madam President.
Thank you. We have several proclamations this evening. It's always exciting when we have these proclamations. And our first proclamation is Law Enforcement Training Week. Whereas the importance of professional law enforcement training is necessary to train the law enforcement officers that protect the residents of the Village of Wheeling and to ensure and protect the rights of the citizens of the Village of Wheeling in a professional manner according to the guarantees of these rights and freedoms afforded through the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And whereas the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association works with the law enforcement trainers throughout the world and the United States and the citizens of the respective communities, including the Village of Wheeling, receive the many benefits of professional law enforcement training. And whereas the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers membership trains many thousands of law enforcement officers annually. And whereas members of the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers are dedicated to using their knowledge and physical skills which are needed to improve the delivery of professional law enforcement training to all law enforcement officers. And whereas International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association understands that their professional commitment to impact wisdom and courage through knowledge and skill to the law enforcement community will guarantee safer and well-protected communities and ensure the rights of the citizens to live free from fear. And whereas International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association provides unique opportunities for professional law enforcement trainers to develop new and improved skills through hands-on learning experiences, including educational workshops, project work, presentation experiences, courses, conferences, and whereas the training that International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers members receive this through an annual conference, which is held annually in the Village of Wheeling and is a value asset to freedom and the democracy way of life. And now, therefore, the Village of Wheeling hereby proclaims April 16th through the 21st, 2012 as Law Enforcement Training Week in the Village of Wheeling and urges all professional law enforcement trainers to continually develop new skills, attain new information, and their professional law enforcement trainer skills to best serve their respective communities. And the director of the International Law Enforcement, Mr. Hayden, we're proud to present this to you. We thank you so much for again choosing us, but we thank you and the thousands that work so hard to make this a safe and wonderful community. You have a few words you'd like to say?
We appreciate that, yes. The past couple of years have been very tough for law enforcement. As you know, the number of officer deaths has gone up rather remarkably in 2010 and 2011. The first part of this year, we've seen a reversal of that trend. We hope that a lot of that is because of better law enforcement training. Nowadays, we're all part of these social media and whatever, and we talk to our members. We get their evaluations, of course, but now the social media talk about Wheeling and coming out here. They don't talk just about the quality of the classes. They don't talk just about what they're going to do there, who they're going to see. They talk about what a nice area this is. And I know sometimes it's easy to forget what a nice area you live in, that other people would come here and visit this area and call this a vacation, but it is for them, and they really love your area. They love being here. They talk about the businesses, the restaurants, and the training as well. So it's a nice, complete package. We really do appreciate it. It's our 6th year here. 2/3 of the ASLIC conferences now have been held at this, and for the foreseeable future, they will be held here at least through 2013. So
we look forward to that.
And we have a presentation for you, for the Village of Wheeling, in appreciation of all that you've done for us, in recognition of the Village of Wheeling, and the village, the police department, but I know it's a total team effort. And it's very well appreciated by myself, by our staff, and by our members, some of whom are represented.
Thank you. And Chief and Deputy Chief, let us give this to you to put in our wonderful office.
Oh yes. There's this is a bigger year than we had last year. We'll bring the Alita people up here.
All up
yeah, I'm not going to introduce.
Let's bring them all up.
We have some chiefs and we have various officers from around the country. We have people from around the world here this week. We have over 720 trainers. That's what we had last week when we stopped registration, but they're registering on site. We have several hundred vendors here. We have people from as far away as Australia that came to train here, to share training here. Officers from Norway, Britain, just all over the world. It is truly an international organization. We find that we can learn from each other. That we can share and learn from each other and help make officers more efficient, more effective, and safer. So I'm not going to belabor too much longer, but thank you very much, especially the City of Wheeling Police Department. They've been very, very helpful. In fact, we're holding some classes at the PD this year. That's a first for us.
That's great.
We're running out of room. We're coming to your house next.
So tomorrow night, can they all come over to the Westin when we have that?
Absolutely. We have
donut contest?
There's a civilian category for that now. You can win a gift card. We have the World Cop Donating Championship. It's the 10th year of that, and it's a tongue-in-cheek event. We did that to help support the National Law Enforcement Memorial. Now a lot of our concentration now is frankly on bringing people to the conference that couldn't afford to come here because of something called budgets, which I know you're all very familiar with. Money is tight. Well, some agencies can't do that. We brought 7 people here on scholarships this year, thanks to the generosity of our vendors and our members. So that's a great thing. So this is one event we do. It's a lot of fun to come and watch. It's law enforcement officers trying to see how many donuts they can eat in 3 minutes. It is a stereotype, but we'll do that. We'll deface ourselves in order to make some money for good causes. We now have a civilian event, and so we'll allow you to eat donuts too. And in 1 minute, see how many donuts you can eat, and you will compete for gift cards and whatnot, and trophies as well.
I look forward to tomorrow.
You're going to compete?
No, I probably would be.
Yeah, I haven't competed for some years either. Yeah.
But I'll watch when they compete.
Well, we would appreciate having anybody who would like to come. We'd like to have you be a judge tomorrow if you can come.
Yeah, I will be there.
We need people start by to watch the number of donuts that are eaten. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Pleasure to be back here in Wheeling, and we're looking forward to being back next year. Chief, anything else?
One thing is I always enjoy being here, and the thing of it is I always tell people I know more about Illinois law sometimes because I'm at your hearings more often. But also, too, Chief Benson said he has another 700 officers answering to him this week. So he's just relishing in this, knowing that crime is going to go down because he's got 700 officers he can deploy right now. So
pretty much for free.
For free.
We like that price tag.
So Chief Benson and his staff, and of course former chief he used to be years ago, they're like a big family to us, and we cannot stay away from here. That's all there is to it. Everybody have a grand night.
Thank you. And on behalf of the board, thank you. National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Whereas 20 million Americans are victims of crime each year, and each crime affects many more, including families, friends, and communities. And whereas crime exacts an emotional, physical, psychological, and financial toll on victims that has the potential to change the course of their lives forever, as they have lost loved ones, life savings, physical and mental health, and often their sense of security. And whereas more than 30 years of progress for crime victims stands on the shoulders of dedicated advocates and brave victims who overcame shame, isolation, and indifference to gain a voice, rights, and respect. And whereas while victim assistance programs across the country are reaching more victims and criminal justice officials are honoring victims' right more consistently, work still needs to be done towards promoting public understanding of victims' rights and building our nation's victim service system. And whereas our history teaches us that by working together, we can help victims of crime reshape their destinies and ensure that they receive the support they need, the respect they deserve, and the rights they have earned. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to reshape the future for victims by honoring the past and reflecting on hard-won victories, and to recommit to working together to insist on better treatment for victims to help them overcome the harm caused by crime. And whereas the Village of Wheeling is joining forces with victim service programs, criminal justice officials, and concerned citizens to raise awareness of victims' rights and observe National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Now therefore I, Judy Eberscotto, President of the Village of Wheeling, do hereby proclaim April 22nd through the 28th, 2012 as National Crime Victims' Rights Week, reaffirm Wheeling's commitment to respect and enforce victims' rights and address their needs throughout the year, and express our appreciation for those victims and crime survivors who have turned personal tragedy into a motivating force to improve our response to victim of crime and build a more just community. And we would like to present this to Ms. Herzog, who is in charge of our human relations. And thank you. Thank you. And Chief Benson?
If I could have Sergeant Licari step up, maybe Jolene and Joe Jr., please. It's my honor to present Sergeant Joseph Licari with a life-saving award. Let me read this to you. During rush hour traffic on Friday, September 9th, 2011, Sergeant Joseph Licari witnessed a motorist exit his vehicle at the police department's east driveway and indicated he was choking. Wheeling Fire Department Engine 24 was en route to Sergeant Licari's location, but was delayed by a freight train at the Dundee Road crossing. Sergeant Licari quickly and correctly assessed the situation and identified the need to perform the Heimlich maneuver. This procedure was successfully performed, opening the motorist's airway. The motorist was kept calm in Sergeant Licari's police vehicle until paramedic crews arrived. The motorist was subsequently checked by Wheeling paramedics and did not require further medical attention. Due to the prompt actions and efforts of Sergeant Licari, the motorist's potential serious medical condition was averted. Sergeant Licari's efforts make him a credit and valuable asset to the Wheeling Police Department, and it's kind of ironic that he's being presented this award tonight because it's not only his dedication and his hard work, but it was his training that very potentially saved another human being's life. And it's my honor to present Sergeant Licari with this life-saving award.
And on behalf of myself and the village board, we thank you for all you do, not only for this, but for watching and helping us keep the safety and being able to help people when help is needed. So thank you very much, and thank you to your wife for bringing the little one tonight. So we thank you very much and continue on the good work. We're very proud of you. Thank you. We have another proclamation which we're going to give, but just an explanation. The Village of Wheeling is issuing this proclamation at the request of a Wheeling resident, Neil Rubenstein, whose son is a CDH survivor. Because he is home caring for his son, Mr. Rubenstein is unable to be here with us tonight. Although the village receives many more requests than it is able to accommodate, we have chosen to issue this proclamation because of its different effect on our community and because of this importance of raising awareness about this serious condition. Whereas one of every 2,500 pregnancies are diagnosed with a CDH, and whereas since 2000, it is estimated that over 700,000 babies have been born with CDH. However, only 50% of these babies survived. And whereas CDH is as common as spinal meningitis and fibrosis, however, very few people know or are aware of it at all. And whereas 1,600 babies are born with CDH every year in the United States, with an average of 13 born in suburban Cook County each year. And whereas there are many people living in Cook County who have been diagnosed with this, have survived CDH, although many families in Cook County have endured the horrible pain and grief associated with the loss of loved ones with CDH. And whereas those with CDH often endure multiple surgeries and possible medical complications beyond their diagnosis that include heart defects and other complications, whereas raising awareness of this congenital defect will help bring about acceptance and support for those suffering with it and help advocate for urgency needed medical research and advances. I, Judy Aberscott of the Village of Wheeling, do hereby proclaim April 19, 2012 as CDH Awareness in the Village of Wheeling. And we have any
no appointments and confirmations, no administrations of oath. There are no citizens' concerns or comments. Staff reports, Public Works Director Tony Stavros.
Thank you. This year, January 1st, a new law came into effect about the disposal of electronics, and that included things like televisions and computers and laptops of such. Prior to January 1st, televisions and stuff were still disposed of at landfills, but the new EPA law requires it bans all electronic equipment from being disposed of in landfills, and they have to be properly disposed of through recycling. On Saturday, May 19th, between the hours of 9 and 12 p.m. only, the Village of Wheeling will co-sponsor a one-day computer electronics recycling event with the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County. Residents may bring their televisions, computers, monitors, PCs, laptops, computer keyboards, fax machines, printers, scanners, VHS, DVD players, recorders, and other acceptable electronics. Public Works Department is located 77 West Tins Road. For questions and additional information on the electronics items that you can bring, feel free to contact Public Works at 847-279-6900. Also, there's information can be found on the village website.
Could you give us
local television cable station? I believe it's Channel 17.
Could you give us the phone number again, Mr. Stavros?
Yes, that's 847-279-6900. This will also show up in the upcoming newsletter in June.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered after all other regular agenda items.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to remove it or move it under new items for discussion. It'll become 13H.
Okay, item 11A becomes new business, item 13H. We have no old business. New business, discussion, announcement of video promotion program by Ben Hollis Worldwide. A little awkward that I'm reading them and introducing them, but last year the board identified the need to build upon our branding strategy and create a more aggressive advertising program. Economic Development Director Vidopolis is going to introduce a new idea which will combine the efforts of the Village of Wheeling and those of the private businesses, in this case on Restaurant Row, into an effort that will greatly increase our public presence when it comes to branding for the Village of Wheeling. Peter?
Thank you. I'm very pleased to introduce a Chicago luminary, our Emmy Award-winning former producer of the Wild Chicago TV series on WTTW, who has partnered with the Village of Wheeling to create a series of online video segments featuring Wheeling businesses over the coming year. We've created a funding program to create a series of 10 videos, one of which will be reserved for the Village of Wheeling to create a community-wide promotional video with 9 slots made available to Wheeling businesses to fund the production of their own promotional videos. The videos will be 3 to 4 minutes in length. The cost of production of each video is $1,000. We've identified funding within our own budgets to create a 50% grant program to underwrite half of the cost of video production for our grant recipients as part of this promotion. As Mr. Swindell has noted, the focus will be on Restaurant Row. The program will be available to all Wheeling businesses. But again, the grant will be focused in more on the Milwaukee Avenue corridor. With us tonight is Mr. Ben Hollis. I'd like to introduce him to talk a little bit about his background. But in my memo to the board, we did establish a production schedule. We're trying to get this completed and produced by the end of July. We've established a May 4th application deadline with the May 11th announcement of the grant recipients. We will have, within the grant application, a commitment to schedule time with Mr. Hollis to produce the videos by June 30th. Excuse my voice. And then between editing and production and the creation of a Wheeling YouTube channel, we hope to have this all live and linked to the village website by the end of July. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Hollis.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, people of Wheeling. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to tell you that I'm very excited to bring the wild spirit to Wheeling. Wild Wheeling, it sounds good, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The videos will have the spirit of Wild Chicago, if anybody remembers Wild Chicago from Channel 11. But I always think that it's important to point out that wild is a loaded word. It means various things to various people. And I have rebranded WILD itself. WILD is an acronym. It stands for WILD, stands for What I Love Doing. Not what I love doing so much, but it's about the spirit, the passion, the love of businesses and entrepreneurs and what they do, what they love doing. And that's what drives things. So each of our stories will focus on the business, the entrepreneurs, the love of what they do, what they bring to the community, why it's good for everybody. The segments will be happy, fun-loving, and not boring, I promise you. That's what it's all about. Wheeling is an excellent place to do this with the restaurants, the beautiful community. I found myself being inspired just listening to you today. You know, my nephew is a law enforcement officer, and so it just gave me pause to think for a moment. Wow, this is my flesh and blood, and he's part of this too. So I just, on a side note, I appreciate being here at this moment for that reason alone. But I am here to talk about Wild Wheeling, and I'm open to any questions you have. Let me tell you a little bit about the production itself. The price of $1,000 per video is an excellent price, and I've developed a production style that makes it good for me too. So each segment only takes 90 minutes, up to 90 minutes of shooting time at the location. So we don't hold up anybody. It's not unusual to be out in 45 minutes, even 30 minutes if it's a smaller place. It's in one location. So we move quickly. We don't tie anybody up. And we bring in testimonials. If we can get some of the folks, their favorite customers to speak, that's good too. And it's really hearing the voice of Wheeling, the voice of the people behind the restaurants. It's not a boring voiceover with canned music in the background. It has spirit, it has heart, and it has vibe. And Wheeling is an outstanding place to bring this. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions? Trustee Lang?
Have you done this for any other communities?
I have. I've done it for Berwyn, the city of Berwyn, and I started as a sort of a pilot program in my own neighborhood of Andersonville in Chicago. Berwyn is a far wider, broader initiative. I did about 16, 17 videos for Berwyn. And we can give you the website so you can actually see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask for.
Yeah. They have a single, like landing page for Wild Berwyn specifically, and that links. Then you see like 15 thumbnail pictures of all the videos available. It's very impressive, and you just click on them and it goes right to YouTube, or you just watch them right there, so you never have to leave the site.
So what we can expect on this for what you did for Berwyn will be very similar for Wheeling?
Yeah.
Same tone?
I believe so, yes. Mm-hmm.
And how do you see the tone? Is it kind of light or?
Yeah, it's light, it's fun. What I found is, it's a good question because it helps me remember something else I want to mention, is that on Wild Chicago, what I found was that segments that seem to really excite the public the most and get me excited too, frequently were about small businesses, and the response that they would get afterwards were tremendous. We found a way to, in a very short period of time, unlike a lot of production out there, just ask questions of the boss, the owner, whoever they want to put on camera, and through this sort of improvisational conversation we have, all the information gets out in a very lively, spontaneous-looking way. And it is spontaneous, although before each segment, I will have spent time with the owners or managers talking about what are the points they want to hit. But it's informative, but I think the point is when the viewer sees me and the other person having a good time, it's attractive, and it works.
Thank you.
You bet.
Is there anyone else?
Just a quick comment, if I may.
Trustee Adira.
Just when the videos are done, Peter, maybe you and your staff can really promote it itself. That doesn't cost anything, within our own tools that we have out there. Okay? It's nice when we have these things done, but then all of a sudden it just sits on a shelf somewhere. We have to be extra aggressive, I think, and get that out there as well. So.
No, definitely. And again, we'll be creating a dedicated YouTube channel that'll be linked to the village website. We'll be working with our other business partners in the community to help cross-promote the entire program, certainly work with our hotels to distribute to their clients. And again, one of the deliverables of the production will be a video segment to each individual business. So they'll be able to use it in their own marketing efforts and talk about the whole, the Wheeling promotion at large.
Right, they can use it in any way they want without limit. Yeah. And we also can provide them with a list of very specific things they can do to drive people to these videos.
Good.
It's nice, yeah.
Good job.
Do we have anything else? Well, thank you very much. We look forward to having this done and seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Good evening.
Item 13B, public hearing regarding plan of operation and governance for electric aggregation. Public hearing is opened at 6:59. I have something that I'd like to read before asking for any questions from the public. Pursuant to Section 1-92 of the Illinois Power Agency Act, municipalities are authorized to aggregate the electric loads of residential and small commercial retail customers and then solicit bids, select a retail electric supplier, and enter into a supply agreement to facilitate the purchase of electricity and related services and equipment on behalf of its residents and small businesses. The statute is a part of the state's electric deregulation efforts, which allows customers access to competitive retail electric markets. Through an intergovernmental agreement which was approved in the first quarter of 2012, representatives from the communities of Arlington Heights, Buffalo Grove, Lincolnshire, Long Grove, Palatine, Vernon Hills, and Wheeling solidified their working relationship to aggregate residential and small commercial retail electrical loads located within each of the communities. The consortium's aggregation program seeks to aggregate the retail electric loads of eligible residents and small commercial retail accounts and to solicit bids for the purchase of that electricity. The consortium's program will solicit bids for both a lowest rate alternative as well as an alternative for a cleaner, greener supply of electric power. The consortium's aggregation program entails each municipality within the consortium entering into a contract with the preferred and selected alternate retail electric supplier, and the program provides the bargaining power achieved through the size of the consortium. The program is designed to reduce the amount its members pay for electric power supply and gain other favorable terms of service. As the board and the public know, for the last several months, I've been representing the Village of Wheeling in these discussions with the consortium as described. We have taken in a number of bids from a number of different suppliers and looked to finalize our suggestion, our recommendation for a supplier by the end of this week. By the end of this week, we will also know what the basic rate is, the lowest rate is, as well as the options for a 100% renewable rate, as well as a mixed rate, meaning there will be a flat rate that everyone is automatically entered into, and then they have an opt-in option for 100% renewable energy. We'll know all three of those numbers by the end of this week. Several months ago at this point, the board gave me the authority to enter into that contract immediately. As we've talked in the past, the purchase of power is highly volatile and fluctuates even several times during the day. So when the consortium sees that the time is right, we're going to act upon it immediately. This is the first of two public hearings that we are required to have. The next one will be next Monday. At which point we will officially ask the board to approve the plan of operations and governance, which will be our final official step in order to bring electric aggregation to the public. As you know, on March 20th, the public voted in favor of the referendum for us to represent them in the purchase of electric supply. And as I said, by the end of this week, we should have a number and a provider available. Since this is a public hearing, I can answer any questions if there are any from the public. And again, this is the first of two opportunities on the same topic, the second being next Monday.
Do we have any questions from the public? Mr. Heber, if you take the...
If you're dissatisfied with the service you're getting from this new company, is there a fee to go back to ComEd? Does ComEd charge you extra?
There's no service, there's no fee to go back. However, the service that's being provided to you is simply the supply of electric power.
Right.
You will see no difference in service.
I understand that also. But if you wanted to go back and have ComEd do the electricity?
You will have to wait to the end of the one we set a 12-month period as the first contract year, as opposed to going 24 or 36 months out, specifically so that we can see how this process works. At the end of that 12 months, there's no fee to go back to ComEd. In fact, ComEd is still technically providing your electricity. It's simply that they are buying credits from another supplier.
I understand.
So all the electric that comes through your outlets will be identical.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heber. Do we have any other questions? We'll close the public hearing. Do we have any questions from the... We need a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Agiris, second by Trustee Vogel.
Just one quick question.
Well, we're just closing the public hearing, Trustee Brady, and then we will have the opportunity to ask the questions. Roll call, please.
Motion second. Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee here.
Yes.
And myself, yes. Now, Trustee Brady, you have a question?
People are not obligated to join this consortium if they want to stay with Commonwealth Edison, am I right?
That's correct. They have the opportunity to opt out at the beginning of the initial transfer from ComEd to whatever the selected power supplier will be. So yes, you have the opportunity. Every resident and every business will receive a letter explaining the program in detail, and they will have a form in order to opt out. You are automatically in unless you complete that form, send it in, and you are effectively opting out of the program.
Just opposite of what Mr. Heber mentioned, if at some point during this 12-month period you did initially opt out but decided that maybe this is a good deal and you want it in, would you have to wait till the end of the year?
You do. You have to wait to the end of the contract year, yes.
Thank you.
Question?
And Trustee Lang?
You brought up a great point with the notification that we get. I'm bombarded by notifications right now. I'm sure everyone else is. So how do we know what the official one is? Will it be from the Village of Wheeling?
It will be on Village of Wheeling letterhead.
Awesome.
And Trustee Agiris?
Just regarding the maintenance, you're still going to get a bill from ComEd, is that correct?
You are absolutely going to get a bill from ComEd. When we started this, we had talked about a 20 to 25% savings. That 20 to 25% savings is only on the supply side. Your bill is divided between supply, maintenance. There are other sections of that bill. 60% of it approximately is the supply cost, the kilowatt hour cost. That's the section of the bill that we're talking about.
And the maintenance, power outages and stuff like that is still going to be maintained by ComEd?
Absolutely. The lines in all regards, whether this is 100% renewable green energy, whatever the mix may be, it is still ComEd's power lines and their responsibility to maintain.
And just to clarify what Mr. Heber had said, to opt out because you're not happy, well, you'd be opting out to really nothing. It'd be foolish to opt out, because if you're saving money, you're still going to save money, but the servicer and the provider are a different provider, but the servicer is still going to maintain your lines, and your bill's still going to come from ComEd.
Correct.
So,
in fact, no matter
business
what,
as usual.
the check is being written to ComEd.
Right.
Trustee Hein?
Thank you. So we understand that, and everybody else understands that if they do not respond to the letter that's going to be sent out to the residents and businesses, if they do not respond to that, it's an automatic, they're into the program.
That is correct.
Okay. And how many of these are we anticipating mailing out? Do we have any idea?
I believe the number is closing in on 8,000.
8,000.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a resolution approving the budget 2013 for the Chicago Executive Airport.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Agiris, second by Trustee Vogel. Do we have any questions before I do a roll call?
A comment, if I may.
Pardon me?
A comment, if I may.
Yes.
In the audience tonight, we have Jamie, the Assistant Director at the airport, and Rita, who's our CFO. And this is the second consecutive year now that we've actually taken this budget to workshop and discuss things. And having Rita there, I just want to give her a little kudos that she's really worked hard, listened to all the input from all the directors there, and come up with ways to save us money, watch our money, spend our money, and create a couple of new line items in there, which announced to me that the airport never had, which is like equivalent to our SURF fund. She helped us create that, with the vehicle equipment reserve fund and the sewer and water, the sewer fund, which is for maintenance and repairs. When things broke down, you just opened up your checkbook and paid for it. Now we're actually putting line item budgets in these things, and she's done a great job on getting us on track and really treating the finances of the airport really, truly like a business. So kudos to her, and I just wanted to give her a lot of recognition, because it's hard, because she listens to 6, 7 different things, and she's got to report to Dennis, and she's put it all together and really worked great with us and had those extra meetings. So,
well, we thank you for that comment, being our representative at the airport.
Thank you.
We thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? Otherwise, we do have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
President Eberscato?
Yes, and thank you very much, and have a good year.
Item 13, is it 13D? Too many
13D.
pages here. 13D, discussion ordinance and 2 resolutions regarding the refund of the village's 2007 general obligation bonds.
Mr. Monishane?
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here tonight discussing this item with you because it's not often that we get an opportunity like this to refund some of the village's existing debt and save a substantial amount of money. As you'll recall, back in October, we did a refunding of the village's 2003 and 2004 general obligation bonds, and that resulted in about $613,000 in present value savings. Since that time, I've had multiple discussions with our financial advisors about some of the other existing debt that we have, and one of the bonds that we focused on were the 2007 bonds. The 2007 bonds, you'll recall, were issued in part to fund the construction of this building, the Village Hall building. And we took a look at this, and we couldn't do a traditional refunding because those bonds didn't have a call date with them. Going back to the 2003 and 2004 bonds, those bonds were easy to refund because they had a call date. And with a traditional refunding, what happens is that you issue new bonds at a lower interest rate, and the proceeds of those bonds are invested in an escrow account. The investments that are held in escrow are typically treasury securities, and you hold those proceeds in escrow until such time as you can call the bonds and retire the bonds. That's a very vanilla traditional refunding. In this case, because we don't have a call date, there's no way to refund the bonds and invest the proceeds in treasuries because treasuries pay so little that the math doesn't work. So the only way to achieve present value savings is to find something that you can invest the escrow money in that pays a decent yield. And in this case, what we've come up with is a creative way to do that by investing the bond proceeds in municipal bonds. The municipal bond market right now is providing some yields that are significantly high, and as a result, by investing in those bonds, we can realize as much as $1 million in present value savings by investing, or by refunding rather, the 2007 bonds. Now, the difference between this type of refunding and the refunding we did in October is that when you invest in treasuries, you have virtually, well, you really have no default risk, because unless the U.S. government defaults on its debt, which is not going to happen, you have no problem. So you put that money aside and you don't worry about it. In this case, when you invest in municipal bonds, the default risk is also almost non-existent. And the reason for that is because throughout history, there have been very few municipal bond defaults. And if you look at the state of Illinois, for an example, anything A-rated or higher has never defaulted. And I'm referring to general obligation bonds that have unlimited tax pledges. There's never been a default in the history of the state of Illinois. And so as a result, we believe that the risk is almost non-existent and is certainly worth undertaking in order to realize the type of savings that we can realize here. In addition to that, in addition to the 2007 bonds, we're looking at some of our other debt as well. The 2005 bonds can be refunded through a traditional refunding, and we plan to come back on May 7th with a bond ordinance that would allow us to refund that debt. Now, that would be a typical plain vanilla refunding. So I'm here to answer any questions you have. I've also asked John Repschel to be here tonight. You'll recall that John used to be with Ellers, and he was the financial advisor that handled the 2007, 2008, and 2009 bonds. And Kevin McCanna is our current financial advisor in charge of selling our bonds for us, and he's here tonight, too, to answer any questions you might have.
Trustee Agiris has a question.
Just in two parts, if I may, Michael, for the good folks out in the audience and on TV. A call date versus a non-call date. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
Okay.
What does that mean?
When you sell bonds, oftentimes you can create a call date, which gives you the right to call in the bonds and retire them early. So, for instance, you may have bonds with a 20-year maturity, and you may have a call date at 7 or 8 years. If you have the funds available to call those bonds in and retire them early, you're able to do that.
Right.
When you create a call feature, you pay a higher yield on the bonds because the people who are buying the bonds are not going to pay or going to demand a higher yield on the bonds because they're not going to have the security of knowing that they're going to be able to keep them for 20 years.
20 years, right.
So when you sell bonds that don't have a call feature, then typically you get a lower yield as a result because those bondholders know that they're going to have those bonds as an investment for 20 years.
Right. And the second part of the question was, how do we fund the escrow account? You made reference to escrow.
Right.
Why don't you explain that a little bit?
We're going to go out and we're going to sell $10 million in general obligation bonds. And we're going to take the proceeds, the $10 million, and we're going to purchase municipal securities. And we're going to put some parameters in place so that we won't buy anything that has lower than a AA rating. So we're talking about the highest rated municipal debt. John's job in this transaction is to serve as purchasing agent, and what he will do is he will work with brokers to go out and secure the debt, to purchase the securities. So he will make sure that we are buying the highest rated bonds that mature at the time that the original debt gets paid off.
Okay.
And that's how we'll fund the escrow.
So the monies, is it coming on an annual basis or at the time of purchase of those bonds? Is it part of the servicing debt? I mean, I'm just clarify it a little bit.
When will the money come in from the bonds we're purchasing?
No, just a little clarification regarding escrow. I mean, a lot of people have the perception out there that escrow is something that you put in consistently. Is there an initial dollar amount in the beginning that goes into an escrow?
Yeah.
That secures you to go out there and get the municipal bond of a AA rated company, municipal bond?
It'll act like an annuity.
It will, okay. That's why. Just to clarify, because a lot of people are going, this is all Greek to me. So, just want to explain it. Thanks.
Do we have any other? Trustee Lang.
One quick question. Okay, so here's another opportunity that you're providing us. Are there any more in the future that you foresee that we might be able to rebond or cash in on?
Yes. As I mentioned, we're looking at the 2005 bonds now, and we think we can refund those bonds at a present value savings of about $150,000. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to come back with an ordinance to do that. And then the only remaining debt that we haven't refunded at this point are the 2008 and 2009 bonds that were sold to construct the new buildings. And those bonds are tied to a swap that we entered into, an interest rate swap. So they're a little bit more difficult. John is working on that right now with Bank of America, who holds those swaps, to see if we can work something out to create an opportunity there. But those are the only remaining pieces.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Read the ordinance.
Ordinance 13D2, providing the issuance of not to exceed $10 million general obligation Village Hall refunding bonds, Series 2012 of the Village of Wheeling, Cook and Lake Counties, Illinois, issuable in one or more series, either tax-exempt or taxable, and authorizing the execution of one or more bond orders and one or more escrow agreements in connection therewith, and providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax for the payment of the principal of and interest on said bonds.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by trustee Agiris.
Second.
Second by trustee Brady. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
President Ebruscato?
Yes.
And trustee Argyris, yes.
And Ken
Trustee
Brady.
Oh, I'm
Argyris.
sorry. Trustee Argyris. This is why you only do one job at a time. Resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to execute an engagement letter with Chapman & Cutler for bond counsel services related to the general obligation Village Hall refunding bonds, Series 2012.
Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Motion made by trustee Heer, second by trustee Agiris. Roll call, please.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris? Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Ebruscato?
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to execute an engagement letter with John V. Repschel for purchasing agent services related to funding and escrow for the general obligation Village Hall refunding bonds, Series 2012.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by trustee Lang,
Second.
second by trustee Brady. Roll call, please.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
President Ebruscato?
Yes.
Resolution expressing official intent regarding certain capital expenditures to be reimbursed from proceeds of an obligation to be issued by the Village of Wheeling, Cook and Lake Counties, Illinois.
Do you have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by trustee Heer,
Second.
second by trustee Hein. Roll call, please.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
President Ebruscato?
Yes. And thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Manishin.
Thanks.
Item 13F, resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the village president to execute a contract between the Village of Wheeling and HD Supply Waterworks Limited for a fixed-based automatic water meter reading system. Before I introduce Director Stavros to talk a little bit about the specifics of the contract itself, a little bit of history. The village has been talking about replacing the water meters throughout town for quite some time. Several months ago, we had a presentation by our consultant who we had retained in order to write and solicit bids and conclude on a final contractor to come in as the provider and installer and manager of the program as the village transitions into its new water meter program. That has been completed. We have received the recommendation from our consultant, and that is for HD Supply Waterworks. Tony could talk a little bit more about HD in general. I would like to add that there has been a little bit of back and forth remaining between the attorneys at HD and our attorneys, so I'd like to add that this motion, if one is made, be contingent upon approval of final attorney review. With that, Director Stavros.
Thank you, John. Yes, this evening, as John said, we brought this in front of you back in January with our intention. We had set out for, I believe it was a half a dozen RFPs at the time. We did have our consultant. We put a consultant on board, which was Water Accountability, Mr. Tom Jakubowski. And staff did an extensive investigation on we did a lot of interviews on these RFPs and the different technology that they had and their what they could bring to the village in the future. And it was decided upon that we go with HD Supply and partner up with a census meter. And so this evening in front of you is a contract not to exceed $3,319,784.
Madam President, if I may just add on to that, the item previous to this was authorizing the sale of $3.5 million in general obligation bonds, which is what we discussed to be the vehicle to fulfill this contract and pay for it in its entirety. So that has been handled through Director Monchain. So I just wanted to put that out there for those that weren't quite sure what that last item was.
Do we have any questions?
I just have one question on it.
Trustee Lang.
Are we ever going to see a time with meters when they get smart enough for, say, that we could tell what our gallon use is in the home, where I go and water the lawn and I know that I spent or I used X amount of gallons out there, and so I know what I'm spending and therefore may think twice about it in the future. Is there anything heading in this direction with these meters, or is there anything that we'd realize with these meters?
You'll be able to realize that today with the meters that you are purchasing. They are hourly read and sent back 4 times a day. So that information then, it can be put onto a web-based application. So you can actually call up your meter number or registration number, input that information and get back not a demand read more or less, but the last hourly read those 4 times a day. So you can also do a demand read, and part of this program was to have a demand within or under 5 minutes to final bill a customer. So you can actually ping that meter, you can call up that meter and get the registration off that meter so you can final bill the customer. Now I think in the future, without reducing the battery life and calling that up numerous times, if a person, required to call it up every day, they may reduce that battery life. But we're assured that these batteries will operate for 20 years with those effects. So it's happening today.
So we can more or less pinpoint and kind of get a cost. Will it show up that way? Are we going to set up this our website that way where we can?
The purchase of Sensus and their technology, with the purchase then of their web-based application, which we thought and looked into was between $30,000 and $50,000 additional, can provide that in the future for the customer based on the number of customers.
So it is not part of this contract, but it is an option.
It's an option, and the technology's there.
Okay. And as a village, how are we looking at that option? Is it something we'll consider in the future, or?
I think it's something to consider in the future after we see how the system works once implemented. I think residents themselves, once they see the display on this meter and are able to recognize how accurate it is, they'll be able to do a lot of those calculations on their own. So I think based upon whatever questions and how many calls we receive in the finance department, we'll be able to determine whether a $30,000 to $50,000 investment from our end would serve the public well.
You can actually read those meters and get that information yourself. Studies have shown that the utilities that have applied the web base, the residents use it about 4 to 6% of the time. When the bills go up or the rates increase, then we see it as high as 20% where they call up the actual demand reads. So many times, is it worth that 4 to 6% of the residents gaining that information for that additional amount of money? I guess that needs to be discussed.
And I think we do anticipate receiving a number of calls once a resident or a business has their first water bill following the installation. Because these meters are much more accurate than the existing ones, it's going to be able to actually measure trickles much more than it did in the past. Not meaning a leak necessarily, although that's certainly an added feature on this, is to be able to recognize when there's a running toilet or something. But because when people wash their hands, they don't necessarily turn the faucet on all the way. This meter will be able to recognize that flow at a much higher capacity than the original existing meters. So people are going to, the cost per gallon is not going up, but bills will probably increase simply because bills are reflecting more accurately the use by the resident or the business.
And even if a customer has a question or complaint in regard to the use of their water, the village will have the ability to pull up that data immediately and send that data off web-based or in the mail to the customer so they can see the actual hourly reads for the last week or for the last month. So if they have a question that, why did the bill go up? Here's your information. On the 12th of May, you watered and sprinkled the lawn for 2 days or a day and a half, or you filled the swimming pool, whatever question it is, and they can see it, the actual readings, and address what really happened.
My kids won't take a long shower again.
That was one of the reasons that we chose the system we did, is because we had the on-demand read. There was other options out there from other manufacturers, but they were what would they call, mesh net system, and it was taking 3, 4, 5, sometimes 12 hours. You'd get a 12-hour read or a 24-hour read, and it just wasn't going to work for us. If we were going to switch over the system, we wanted to make sure we had demand on-time reading, so you could call the finance department, and within a few minutes after she was on the phone, she could tell you exactly what you did, or if you were complaining about your bill, she'd say, are you sure everything is off? And if you come back and say, everything in my house is off, and she'd say, well, something's running because it's showing it. So,
thank you, Tom.
Trustee Agiris.
Regarding the finances, Michael, on this thing, this $3.5 million bond, what are you projecting the debt to be on an annual basis?
We're looking at about $400,000 a year, and the money's going to come from the water and sewer fund, so it has no impact on the property tax.
I just wanted to get it for the record. Thank you.
Trustee here.
Yeah, a couple other questions. Tony, on the software, on this computer issue, everybody's seen these issues come up when you have this type of technology. Have there been any problems with the systems that are already in use in regards to software issues, in regards to actually reading these meters? That's question number one. And two, how often will the software have to be upgraded? Will it be annually? Will it be every 5 years? I know technology changes, but...
As the technology changes, we have Mark Barron here from HD. Maybe, Mark, you'd like to get up and explain the technology as far as when it changes?
Because once they're in place, all of a sudden, well, you got our system now we're holding you hostage, you have to buy our software. So that could cost, who knows what kind of money.
Upgrades, in our proposal...
Can you talk in a microphone?
I'm sorry?
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. In our proposal, we actually included a yearly fee for that would include upgrades to the software. It's optional to you. So there's like 3 antenna sites. That's how we'll be reading the meters. And there's an annual fee for those antenna sites that was included in the proposal that we provided to you.
Okay. And then, Tony, and the other part of this is when is installation slated to start, and then how long will it take to complete the entire village?
The contract is currently set for 365 days. There's a lot of variables in there. As we well know, there's unfortunately a lot of foreclosures. There's some units that are empty, which may take some court action to get into some of these units to get these meters changed out. We may have to wait completely till those units are turned over. I'm not expecting that 100% of all the meters will be switched out in this contract. Maybe 1% will have to be done in-house as time goes on because of the availability not being able to get in these units. Right. But for the most part, I believe that we should be able to knock it out within 365 days. They just did another program in...
We're actually closing out Morton Grove next week, and that's about the same size village for you guys. We started last June, and we were substantially completed by January. And then, like Tony said, as far as foreclosures, some of the, you just can't get in, or you may not want us to get in.
And how do you notify the residents? How are we going to do that?
The meter installer, they'll have a crew of between 8 and 12 installers, and they will handle all the installations. They will make notification to the residents, and they will set up a time for them to come in, and it may entail some evenings. We don't like to do it in the evenings, but up to maybe 7 o'clock, so people are home, so we can get in. Possibly on Saturdays, we will have a crew, or at least a representative from the Public Works Department, Utility Division, with these people during the day and at night, or if they come in on a Saturday, to keep track of what's going on.
Good.
Tom will also be hopefully overseeing some of the work. So I'm confident that these installers have done this on. We've checked their background on 4 major projects they've done for meter installs, and it's went smoothly.
And then just for the residents who are watching, how long does it take to replace the meter, to put the new one in? Ballpark.
If there's nothing wrong with the plumbing inside, and I have to stress this because some of the older homes, I would say probably in the Dunhurst area, some of those valves haven't been shut off on the inside of those houses for years. They may run into problems, okay? And the plumbers, when they come in to do this work, and if a valve has to be changed out or something like that, it could delay the installation a little bit. What we're anticipating is we've set some money aside in the contract to do some minor plumbing upgrades, a valve or an elbow, rather than trying to put the burden back on the homeowner. But if certainly there's a major problem in the house with the plumbing, then the homeowner would have to be notified by the plumbing inspector, and they would have to upgrade the plumbing to accept that new water meter. It's anticipated all the meters or all the water services will be shut off at the Buffalo box. If the Buffalo box is not operable, we'll dig it up and repair it prior to them coming in. We'll have a list out ahead of them. So this is twofold.
Right.
When we're all done with this project, we should have all the Buffalo boxes working in town again.
Yes. Thank you very much.
And Trustee Lang, you had another question?
Yes, I was trying to look through the paperwork, but are we going into the industrial areas in a future stage for this, or?
I would say that probably we're looking to do some of the industrial areas right away. We'd like to get some of the larger meters out there, get them out of the system, get the new ones in. Some of those meters are 40 years old, and I can tell you they're oversized by a big majority of them. And, the uses have changed in those buildings. Maybe you had a high-end user and he brought a 4-inch domestic in, and that original user moved out, and now you got a different user in there, and he probably doesn't need any more than a 2-inch meter. And if that's all the flow he's got going through there, if the 4-inch meter is not picking up the low flows, that's revenue that's lost. So to generate the revenue faster, we'd like to get into the industrial areas or the larger meters as well, so they won't be the last ones done. They're going to be towards the front.
Great.
Do we have any other questions?
No.
We need a motion to approve to review and final approval by the village attorney.
So moved.
Motion made by Trustee Hines, second by Trustee Agiris. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris? Yes. Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
President Ebruscato.
Yes.
Item 13G, resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the village president to execute a contract between the Village of Wheeling and Jetco Limited for the recoating of elevated tank number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Agiris, second by Trustee Heer. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Ebruscato.
Yes.
Item 13H was pulled from the consent. Resolution granting a permit to You Can Make It Outreach Ministry to conduct a Tag Day, May 15th, 16th, and 17th, 2012.
Mr. Perillo?
Before the discussion starts relative to this item, I wanted to provide some clarification. In February of 2012, we amended the village code regarding tag days to provide that each charitable organization is allowed one permit per year to extend for no more than 2 consecutive days. This particular application came in for 3. I think we're getting used to the new ordinance. The approval of this should be for a 2-day consecutive period to be decided, certainly maybe perhaps by the organization or by the board, however you want to do that, but it should be either for the 15th and 16th or the 16th and 17th as far as an application goes.
Thank you. And Trustee Vogel?
That was my clarification I was requesting.
Sorry, we didn't mean to jump you there. We were actually going to pull the item as well.
Okay. Well, then I make a motion that we pull the item, table it, until the charity gets back to us.
Or you can approve today for 2 consecutive, either way, to table or approve for 2 consecutive days.
Would would someone from the outreach ministry be here today?
No.
No one is here? So would you like to put the dates?
Hey, you know what? No, let's give them the choice, but we'll make the motion that it's amended to 2 consecutive days of their choice.
So moved.
And enforce it, please.
Absolutely. Motion made by Trustee Vogel, seconded by Trustee Lang. Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
President Ebruscato?
Yes. Do we have official communications? Does anyone have anything they'd like to add?
I'd like to say one little quick thing, if I may. I think Dundee Road is looking really good. Stavros and your staff and the rest of the staff on making IDOT put concrete sidewalks in there. What a difference versus the asphalt patch they wanted to put it there. So, I mean, Dundee Road's really looking sharp. Really noticed it today with the curb and the cutter. It's going to look really nice there. Thanks.
Trustee Brady?
Just a question. I see Dunkin' Donuts is starting. They got their fences up and everything else. Are they proceeding with construction? They have all their permits and everything?
They currently have site alteration permit from community development. They do not. They also have a foundation permit from us. They do not have a permit for the building yet because they have not provided us with the correct documents. But they are going to start construction relative to the grading, to the they got silt fencing up, and then the foundation itself.
How long before the TIF agreement with them is going to be a document?
Be by the end of the second meeting in May. We'll have that before you.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Yes, do you have something?
I would just like to add, while this is certainly something that can be said every week, I would just like to recognize the efforts of staff. Tonight, between the proclamations, the agenda, we've covered a number of fairly significant and substantial proactive and positive events for the Village of Wheeling, and that all happened because of the efforts of our department heads, and I would just like to publicly recognize all of them, and in addition, perhaps just embarrass Finance Director Monchain, since not only did he save us well over $2 million in these refinancing of both this debt and our previous, it is, as Trustee Vogel said, your birthday, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael.
Thank you.
Where's the cake?
Do you have approval of the bills of March 29th through April 11th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Vogel, second by Trustee Lang. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
President Ebruscato?
Yes. The board will go into executive session to discuss appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee or employees of the village. We will go into executive session at 7:55. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Vogel, second by Trustee Lang. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
President DeBriscato?
Yes.
That was 20.
All right, 7:50.